Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Mike Grinberg with me here today. Mike is the founder and principal consultant of Proofpoint Marketing, a growth advisory firm that focuses on helping consulting and advisory firms scale sustainably. Mike's expertise is in building growth systems for consulting firms. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Tim, thanks for having me.
So we were talking just before we started here, and you have a lot more podcast experience than I do. Can you talk a little bit about your background and what got you to where you're at now? And then we'll talk about the details of your current.
Sure. How far back do you want to go?
Well, we're both from Minnesota, so that's pretty
right.
cool.
I mean, if we want to go all the way back,
Unintended.
yeah, we figured out that we're both from the Minneapolis area. Yeah. I guess the short of it is I thought I was going to be a graphic designer. At one point, that was well. First, I wanted to be a visual artist. Then I realized that you don't make any money in that. So then I did the next closest thing, which I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be a graphic designer. And then realized I wasn't that good at it. I was okay, I did all right, but I was not the best. And I fell into marketing and just kind of went from there. And after a while, my wife and I started a business, built an agency, and then now I'm kind of back to being more solo and doing growth consulting work. So
Okay, so you're a creative type. Is that fair
I
to
am
say?
I'll call it like I don't know what the best way to describe it is. I'm a mix of creative and data. So
Okay,
that's kind of how I got into marketing, because I realized I was a mediocre creative, but you combine creativity with data and a few other things, and now you've got something that's a little bit more unique. It's kind of what's his name? Scott Adams' kind of concept. The guy that created Dilbert. He's got this thing of like, he talks about like, well, I'm definitely not the best illustrator. I'm not the best business person. And there's a third thing. And he's like, but I'm in the top 5% of each. And that combination
right.
puts me in the top, 0.5% of people like that.
Sure. And that's really where a lot of success is nowadays.
Yeah.
It's combining two different fields, right? Two different
Yeah.
genres is really kind of where, if you look at the people who, when you take a technology and then combine it into a business, right? And anyway, I don't want to belabor that too much, but what was I gonna say? I forget right now. It'll come back to me. Anyway, so right now let's talk about your growth consulting.
Sure. What do you want to know?
So how long have you been doing that, and what's it like? Who are your ideal clients? How are you helping them grow? What are the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been, like I said, my wife and I started the marketing agency, a B2B marketing agency, back in 2017.
Okay.
So that's when I went out on my own. So I've been on my own since then. It's taken a few turns in terms of positioning pivots and things like that. And the latest iteration, kind of decided where, wanted to go back to my roots of doing strategy, because I being a business owner, kind of got away from actually doing some of the work I enjoyed. So pivoted the business in that way over the last about year and a half. And now we always, not always, but for the last number of years, we worked with professional services firms, but I really doubled down on that. So I work with small to mid-size consulting and advisory firms. So say anywhere from like 5 to 350 employees. So about between like roughly say 2 and 50 to 100 million in revenue, like that kind of that type of size. Ideally, they're like multidisciplinary type firms, things like that.
Okay. There's a fair amount of competition in that space. What sort of sets you apart?
Good question. It's funny because I was mentioning it before we jumped on that I just launched a positioning workshop, and one of my favorite questions to ask people is like, what makes you different? What's your secret sauce? And most people will
Right.
respond with, some functional type of answer. It's like, oh, well, it's my expertise, or it's our process, or it's our people, or whatever. When in reality, it's like, well, so what? Right. Like, and everybody says that same kind of thing. And even if you
Okay.
have a unique process, well, what does that really mean?
Right.
So, which I do, but I don't generally start with that. Like my answer to that
Right.
is like my goal and what I do is to make the firm the help them scale by being the low risk choice for their ideal customers. Because the majority of businesses, when they position themselves and when they go out and they do sales and marketing and they build their service offerings and things like that, they completely ignore how relationships are built and how much risk there is in the market, especially in services, because of the ridiculous amount of choice that exists, right? I mean, you want to hire a growth consultant, you know, they're a dime a dozen, right? You
Right.
want to hire a management consulting firm, those are a dime a dozen. You want to hire a CPA, same thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So it's just, and even, the traditional advice is like, well, you niche down. So you're you're a CPA for marketing agencies. Okay, I
Right.
guess, but there are at least 500 of those.
Right.
What makes you different, right? So it's,
Right.
and the whole idea is what makes you different is your IP, right? It's your frameworks, it's your methodologies, it's the concepts. Maybe it could be proprietary software and data, what any of those types of things. But it's
Mhm.
I hate the word thought leadership because that doesn't mean much these days, but it's that. And that's what everything has to be based around. That is the context for how you go to market. That is the context for your differentiated process and the people that you hire, et cetera. So that's a long-winded answer of what makes me different is because that IP, that framework, though, that methodology is what I've developed, and that's what I help my clients with.
Okay. It sounds like people and relationships is a big part of that.
It is a big part of that. Understanding how relationships are built is a huge part of that. At one point, it was the main thing, and I've realized that actually isn't enough. There's this whole risk component that's actually at the center, where relationships come in as sort of the intersection of like it's a layer, if you will, right? So like if you think about um, if you're selling into a B2B environment, right, there is inherently risk that exists, but if I'm whatever, if I'm selling to you, Tim, there's going to be um, some skepticism at first. That's internal. That's you. I'm talking to you. I'm gonna whatever. I give you my pitch, and you're gonna go. That sounds great, Mike, but something just feels off. I don't know what you're gonna wrestle with that. Maybe you ask me some questions. That's gonna be that internal skepticism. If you're part of a bigger organization, at some point, maybe you like what I have to offer, but you're just not sure. Well, there's going to be external questioning. You're going to go to your team, your peers, your partners, whatever, a consultant, a coach. And you go, hey, I met this guy. I have this problem. He seems to have an interesting solution, but I'm just not sure about this thing. What do you think? Okay. So that's one side of the equation, or one side of the matrix, if you
That's
will.
like the familiarity aspect of it or
It
comfort
could be. I
level.
mean, there obviously trust and credibility are a big part of that. So
Okay.
yes, that's part of it, but that might be a solution to it potentially. It's like, how do you build more of that so they trust you more, so they're not questioning you as much, right? That's that kind of thing. But then on the other axis, if you think of it as a 2 by 2 matrix, so um, you have skepticism and you have questioning. On the other axis, you have personal risk and organizational risk. Now, most people will focus on the organizational side. Well, obviously, you want people want the best for their organization, but the reality is the personal risk is the much more acute one. That's what people feel.
Okay.
So the personal risk is, well, am I gonna get fired if I hire Mike, or if I hire Proofpoint, or if I hire Tim, or whoever, right? So that's the concept, that's the frame, that's part of the framework, etc.
Okay. And does that come easy to you then?
I mean, it does now. It took me, it's taken years of kind of working through things, through problems with clients to develop the framework, right? It's sort of the whole, in general, the best consultants are the ones that can make the complex simple, right? So that's the idea here is
Okay.
take a complex idea of growth and risk and create a simple framework around it. It doesn't make it easy, but it's a simple way to think about it, understand it, and be able to apply
Right.
it.
Okay. Do you have a sort of a recent example or case study?
Yeah, there's my own business. There's that. Um, there's a digital transformation firm I recently worked with that. Um, again, their general answer to the "how are you different" questions, like, oh, well, we have senior people and we have a different process. I'm like, well, that's great, but every single digital transformation firm says that pretty much that same thing. For the matter, if you look at the website of most consulting firms, it's some variation of, well, we solve complex problems for businesses large and small,
Okay.
right? It's like, well, what does that mean? Who are you? What do you do and who do you do it for? And why are you the best at it? And why should I even trust you when you say that? So, working with them to reposition that as like taking they had you, most businesses, most consulting firms have that unique IP. It exists. It's just so buried within the organization and never actually even sees the light of day until they're
Okay.
working with a client. So it's unearthing that and synthesizing it into something that you can package up and put out there and evangelize.
Okay. So helping them showcase uh their unique sales proposition or
Yeah, that's in essence, yes, but it's bigger than that to a certain extent, right? So if you think about positioning, um, it's a fundamental business exercise, right? It's not just, hey, let's develop your tagline or your messaging, and that's where a lot of it stops. But in reality, it's okay. Well, if this is your IP, and now the question is, do the functional elements of your business, so again, in my case, it's professional services. Does the delivery model, the account management, you know, um, the operations, does that all support the value? Does it deliver the value of your IP, of these frameworks and these methodologies? And then are you going to market about it the right way? Does your sales process and your business development process, and if you have a partnership team, great, that too, marketing, messaging, all of those things, do they bring that value to light in the right way where it creates affinity to your brand?
okay. Okay. So someone listening to us right now wants to get better at that. What's like one of the biggest tips you would share?
Um, so the biggest things that influenced me when creating this, there are two um, concepts, and they have nothing to do with marketing. Actually, it's more all about kind of psychology and social economics. It's Daniel Kahneman's work, which is prospect theory. So he's got the
Okay.
book Thinking Fast and Slow. It's not only about that, but it's references those things.
Okay.
And then the paradox of choice, which is Barry Schwartz. He's I think, social scientist. I forget exactly where, but I think I forget where he was a professor at. But anyway,
Okay. Do you
long story
implement
short,
those two things in
those
how?
two
What?
books, I think, are some of the best to really get somebody to better understand the concepts of risk and choice and what that means to them for them as a business when they are pitching, when they're going to market.
Huh. Okay. Okay. That's it sounds it sounds easy when you say, "Oh, I have a product, I want to go sell it," right? But then you get into the nuances, you get into the weeds, and you start to realize that there's a lot of other people. You got to stand out, and you have to.
Yep.
Um, it can be very nuanced. All right, so thank you for that. Another question for you: what's one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in your career?
Um, there's been a number of them, I guess. The first one would be a more, kind of how our business even started in the first place. So, like, while I always planned on working for myself. I wasn't necessarily at that point. But so my wife and I both had, pretty successful, you know, I don't want to call corporate careers. I was working for an energy startup at the time. She was working for she was building a small marketing consulting practice for somebody else. And we had our daughter, and she was born really premature. She's our first daughter. She's 9.5 now. She's doing great, but she was born at 24 weeks.
Oh, wow. That's
So we
early.
spent 6 months in the NICU. At that same time, my wife got let go from her job. And then soon after that, the startup I was at went under due to some shady embezzlement by
Oh,
the
yikes.
founder and whatnot. So we were kind of in this position where like, okay, well, we have a critically fragile kiddo in the hospital, and we need work. Do we both go out and get corporate gigs? This was 2017. That was before remote work was really popular.
Okay.
So we're like, well, I guess we're just gonna build our own thing. I had a few, consulting clients on the side, and built an agency, built it to a decent size, and so that was the first one. Um, the second one probably is the more recent one, which is pivoting from a agency to a really kind of taking a step back to go forward type thing. So we had a team of 10, um, but we were both burnt out. I was burnt out, wasn't terribly happy. As in hindsight, it's one of those things that's kind of hard to see when you're in the middle of it. We kind of built something that we weren't really excited about. Again, in hindsight. So getting through that whole thing and repositioning the business and kind of and changing what I'm doing, that's been quite the challenge. Good one over the last few years, but
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. So, yeah, you've been through financial struggles. You started to appreciate how important passive income can be to enhance or replace your current streams of income, active income, stop maybe trading your time for money and stuff is a goal that a lot of people are looking for in the future in their careers. What are your thoughts on that now?
yeah, I mean, 100% in terms of, we've definitely probably could have and should have made some better financial decisions in the past, and we're rectifying those things now as we speak, actually. So, um, I've I've always been skeptical of the concept of passive income because I don't
Sure.
know. I mean, you tell me if I'm completely wrong, but is anything ever actually passive, right? I mean, you're always actively doing something, even if you're just thinking about it, right? If it's
Well, your
uh,
investments, right? If you put your
yeah,
money in something that you're not in charge of,
sure,
right? Stocks or like what I do,
yeah,
apartment syndications. That's one of the few ways you can be passively involved in real estate, right? You
right,
can invest in somebody else's project. They're doing the work. You're not really doing
right,
anything. But um, yeah, I agree with you though. It's thrown around there a lot, like passive income, streams of passive income. Like, yeah,
right,
you're setting them up and maintaining them. That alone is requires
yep,
some level of activity.
right, right,
Uh, okay, so a little bit more on investments. Do you want to share sort of your best and worst investments before we talk? Because I wanted to get into what your business goals are, because a lot of people
sure,
want to grow their business to a point where they can step back and just
yeah,
play visionary. But
yeah.
um,
So something I mean, best and worst investments. I mean, I don't know. We've been pretty. The worst investment is not investing enough, I would say. Um,
okay, good answer.
and best investment, this might be silly, but like we finally started working with a wealth advisor. Actually, you had him on the
Okay,
show, and he's been great so far. So,
nice, nice,
um, so that's not necessarily an investment per se, but investment of time and resources and whatnot.
sure.
Um, Business goals. What I've kind of found recently is I'm looking to build a different business than I originally thought I was going to build.
Ooh, tell
Um,
us more.
so, the original goal was, well, we're gonna build an agency, we're gonna grow it, we're gonna make a big big-ish is probably the term. Like we were never really wanted to grow a, 500-person firm or anything like that. That's just not terribly interested in that kind of managing a firm like that. But
Okay.
now really what I'm looking to do, because we also just had our second daughter recently, so got a newborn in the
Excellent.
house, and I hate the term lifestyle business because I think at the end of the day, everything is a lifestyle business. It's just the question is what kind of lifestyle do you want to live? Like I think
Right.
so. I don't like that term,
You
but
have a better one?
no, I don't. I don't have a better term. I just really don't like that one because it's like it's thrown around as either very negatively, like it's looked down upon, say, oh, well, this is just a lifestyle business,
Right.
or it's like people think like it can only like a lifestyle business is only one type of business, and the reality, like
Right.
my opinion is the the startup founder that's chasing the big VC money and that's raising a giant round that's working 100 hours to get this, and living on ramen noodles for months or whatever. I'm making this up. Obviously, it's a
Years?
caricature, but
Sure.
like
Sure.
that's a lifestyle and they're choosing that because they
Right.
want the outcome. It's still a lifestyle.
Right.
That just
Right.
happens to be the lifestyle they're doing. And
For
like,
sure.
I know people in the investment banking space who are traveling, whatever, 200 plus days out of the year, and they've got families and things like that. And I talked to a bunch. I'm like, I don't want that. But I talked to them like, no, I love it. It's great. I wouldn't. I'm doing it because I want to, not because I feel like, not because
Right.
I have to. So like, that's just the lifestyle they choose.
Sure. I'm with you.
So
Back before I had kids, I'd work 100+ hours a week and it was fine. I'd work nights and weekends and
yeah.
everything. It was fun.
So getting back to you
Yeah.
asked me a question like what business goes. Like right now, the business I'm looking to build is something that is very small, very profitable, and diversified within the business itself. So different, multiple revenue streams. I want at least some of them to be scalable, meaning like I do want to build a sellable asset
Okay.
at some point. Is that going to be the entire business? Probably not. But part of it, yes. So
Okay.
that's kind of those are the things that I'm working through right now.
Okay. Okay. I'm in a similar space, in the sense that I'm not building a legacy business with a big brick and mortar, tons of
Yeah.
employees. That's not that. I like being a small shop
Yeah.
because I don't have a lot of overhead. I don't have to do stuff,
Yeah.
just to do them. I can be picky. So yeah, there's a balance there, and it has been called a lifestyle business, and
Yeah.
because I'm prioritizing my lifestyle more.
Hmm.
Not really. I'm working just as hard, just different.
Yep.
So
Yeah. No, I mean, kind of in the same boat, but yeah, I mean, I am prioritizing myself more than I probably ever have in the past.
okay.
So that's a true statement for me. Not every day. I mean, I have days where work a long day and go to bed late, whatever. That does still happen. But
Sure. Sure. Okay. Excellent. Thank you for all that. So, given your success in your career to date, do you have a desired impact for your business in the future, for the area in Phoenix? Do you have any particular goals for this year or the coming 5 years?
um, I mean, it broadly speaking. I mean, I've never been kind of regionally focused. Like I've got, for that matter, at this point, don't have any clients in the Phoenix area.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're all
Okay.
kind of all over the place.
Okay.
Um, but I do want to be like my goal is to get more involved in the Phoenix business and entrepreneurial community.
Okay.
Because I think I've rediscovered, maybe similar to you with starting this podcast, I've rediscovered my I don't know if love for networking is the right term, but interest in networking, like just being
Okay.
around other good people, other smart people. So I do want to get more involved in the more local community because I think just being in person is you can't replace that with
True. True. And
even though my business is virtual and I've started it virtually, it's always been that way. But
okay. Okay. It's a great market. Phoenix is booming, right? A
yeah,
lot of good job growth, population growth. So it's
yeah,
it's absolutely not a bad spot to focus any business on.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I have a reflection question I'd like to ask people. It was, what do you wish you knew about building wealth and success earlier in your career?
Well,
You
that's
teased a little
success.
bit about investing more sooner earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not that I didn't know that. I feel like I knew that, but it's more of like, it's one thing to know something, it's another thing to act on it.
For sure.
Um, but I do think it's having that discipline to do that sooner.
Okay, right. The wisdom versus knowledge issue, right?
That
Now,
well, that and I think also, kind of going along with that is earlier on before family and kids have, just trying more things where the consequences aren't as dire, if you will. You screw up a couple of investments in your 20s when you're single. Worst,
sure.
worst comes to worst is you're back on the couch with mom and dad. You know,
Right.
you screw you
Right.
screw that up in your 40s when you got two kids. It's a very different thing.
Right. Right. That's the type of advice I've heard in a variety of different forms, but basically you swing for the fence when you're younger because you can
Yeah.
afford to strike out more,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Mike. If people would like to connect with you or learn more, what should they do?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Mike Grinberg, or my website, which is proofpoint.marketing.
Okay, excellent. Well, we appreciate you all for watching and listening today. Thank you very much, Mike, for joining me today. We appreciate you sharing your story and your business and your insights into success.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Inspired by our guests? Visit phoenixprosperitypodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.